Impact is brought to you by Zeneca, Bill's Electric, St. Mary River Irrigation District, Eastern Irrigation District, Raylor Trucking, and Cactus Communications.
Now, on Impact. Bison are making a comeback on the prairie as a meat source that's gaining in popularity. Then, a farmer who has an idea for a better combine header. Will it sell? And later, something's different about this farm. It's one fish story you don't want to miss. That's all on Impact.
Welcome to Impact.
The farmer has always been part mechanic, part businessman, part accountant, and part soothsayer.
As well, farmers have often been innovators. In fact, many of the innovations found on today's farm equipment started out as farm inventions.
For today's farmer, the equipment is bigger and more powerful than ever. With larger farms, they need to get the crop off as fast and efficiently as possible. Some farmers buy the biggest and best equipment available. Others find ways to improve on the best. Bill Kaup is one of those improvers.
It's just a natural thing that you want it to, you think of an idea that, geez, we can make this run better or work better. Well, that always is going to equate to more profit on your farm. And of course, you know, we like this lifestyle, but we're kind of here to make a little money too. You know, if we don't make money, then we won't be here very long.
The thing that Bill is making run better is a combine header. He found that with the wider headers, the limiting factor to the throughput was that the crop bunched up in the middle.
So we come up with an idea of having a moving table with this belt. So this belt is on 2 rollers, driven by a hydraulic motor, and it's teed in with the hydraulics on the reel, because all the reels on the combines nowadays are run by hydraulic motors. So as you got more material coming in here, not only do you have the auger and your fingers which propel the material in, but you'll also have this belt turning, which gives it a double feed, so you're feeding from the bottom and the top. Basically turning the static table into a moving table in the center area of the header.
The width of the belt was limited by the reinforcing frame of the header, but initial tests were favorable. Bill ran this combine side by side with one with a canvas header.
So we think it's adding 25% to the ability of this header to perform. And then there were some conditions where, in fact, we could go faster.
And Bill is hoping with his latest modifications that it will now be even or faster for all crops. This is the latest and probably the final version of the belt assembly, and after one more summer of testing, it will be ready for the market.
Being farmers, we know when we buy something, if it don't work properly, it doesn't take us long to take it off and throw it away. So we don't want this to happen to this machine, so we don't want to get it out there until we're real happy with it ourselves.
Bill has applied for a patent and has found a manufacturer, but is also finding that inventing has its downside, marketing the product.
At first, we were full of all kinds of optimism of how this was going to be so good, but we're finding out marketing presents a lot of new problems that we didn't have when we were just farmers.
This is just the latest in a string of inventions for Bill. This self-propelled sprayer was built out of an old combine. It provided greater visibility, as well as getting the operator out of the fumes. This tractor was a workhorse of the 60s, but today's farmer likes a little more luxury. With a little ingenuity, this cab from a junked combine replaced the older, uncomfortable cab. A 400 horsepower Cummins diesel engine from a truck replaced the motor. A paint job, and the result is a top-of-the-line tractor at 1/10 the price of a new one. Not all of Bill's projects are commercial ventures, though.
We built a land roller out of an old cultivator. It's not something that we would manufacture. There's lots of them on the market right now, but it's something that we could build ourselves and save a lot of money by putting our labor to use in the wintertime making this roller. And it's turned out to be a real effective. We're really pleased with the way it packs the ground for, like we use an air seeder, and we feel a lot of the packers on the market don't do as good a job of packing as we'd like.
The former cultivator still folds up and can be transported from field to field, giving it an advantage over commercial versions. Another project was to design an air seeder. With the foresight of a chess master, Bill and his partner refined a smaller seeder. They took the wheels and axle off an old combine, moved the back wheels to the front, reversed the drive, moved the fan to the back, and added large platforms, well-latched lids, and screens. They had the equivalent of a 280-bushel, $50,000 seeder for a fraction of the price.
I don't know, just started off when I was young. I enjoyed mechanics and putting things together and building, so I guess I can still just be like I was when I was a kid. Only bigger toys.
Most of the projects Bill undertakes are for his own benefit.
When you sit on the combine there, that's when all the ideas pop into your head for the winter time, because you're combining and something will come to you as you're going along.
There are a lot of good ideas that farmers come up with. One of the ways that a farmer can get help is from the Alberta Farm Machinery Research Centre.
Give advice or help with patent searches and give information on costs and issues involved in getting a patent. We have a lot of farmers and small companies that come to us that have built a prototype of a machine, but they're not sure that it's working exactly how it should, or they're not sure how much it can handle. We have the instrumentation and the equipment here that we can test it for them and give them a report on how well it will work.
One of the projects that AFMARC has been helping out with is a farmer-invented pump that uses the stream's current to pump water to dugouts.
That was an idea from a farmer rancher from Clarisholm area, and he originally had thought of patenting it, but then he decided it was too much cost and too much hassle, so he actually contacted PFRA and basically gave them the right to use the idea and spread it around.
For Bill, if his combine header modification is successful, it will be his last commercial venture. The problems associated with patents and marketing are not part of a farmer's lifestyle. But with all of his inventions, he feels he's contributing something to society.
It's my contribution to recycling. Because if you can recycle an old piece of farm equipment and make it useful, well, that's something that doesn't end up at the junkyard right away and get more use out of it. So I think it's if you figured it all out through how the steel was made to the point of all the manufacturing, the longer you make your equipment last, it should be better for the environment.
Coming up, we'll go to that home on the range where the bison roam.
Welcome back to Impact.
They once roamed the prairies in giant herds of hundreds of thousands.
But when guns were introduced to North America, they were driven to near extinction. They are the buffalo or bison.
Today, many ranchers raise buffalo as a source of meat, and the market for that meat is growing.
They once covered the plains of North America in herds ranging from 30 million to 200 million animals. Endless seas of bison made their way across the prairie in a constant search for food. That lasted until the early 1800s, when hunting almost wiped out the entire species. Railways encouraged hunting them to avoid train delays. Plains settlers wanted room for their domestic livestock. Trophy hunters wanted the heads and skulls, and the tongue of the bison was considered a delicacy. The U.S. Army also encouraged hunting to reduce the food supply for natives during the Indian Wars. By 1885, there were only about 500 bison left. But now, the bison has made a resurgence. Through protective measures and now with bison ranching, the numbers have risen dramatically. There are now more than 200,000 bison in North America, and that number is growing daily. Rick Diven is one of the many ranching bison.
The reason we got into raising buffalo was when we bought this place, I always kind of wanted to get into something more exotic kind of thing. I've always had kind of a desire for wild animals and stuff, and just something different than than what everybody else was doing, and so I did some checking into it, and I just felt that out of all the things that I've checked into, that bison were the best kind of thing to get into.
Raising bison is catching on quickly. There are now over 675 producers in Canada, and more ranchers are joining the wave.
The thing that's nice about them is that they take very little work. There's no bedding, no shelters. You know, they just don't require a lot of work, a lot of, calving is very minimal problems. You know, they can just stay out in the pasture all winter long. They don't have to have shelters and all that stuff. And they're made for North America. You know, they were here before we were.
The interest in bison is for their meat. It's a healthier meat than beef. It's low in fat and cholesterol and high in zinc and iron. With more people looking at alternative meats, the timing was right for promoting bison meat.
More and more people try it and they really enjoy it, and I think a lot of people are beginning to want more and more, the health food aspect of it too, and a lot of people with high blood pressure, that kind of stuff, heart problems and stuff. It's a very, very good meat.
Rick is in partnership with Kevin Wickersham in a small store with the aim of promoting bison and selling the meat. They have various items for sale, from decorated skulls to buffalo wool, but their main focus is a variety of meat products.
Originally, when we got into buffalo, it was something we weren't really familiar with, but as we got to tasting the meat, we really enjoyed the meat. And being in the industry, it was kind of just a natural to want to market some of our products.
The Plains bison is a distant relative of domestic cattle, and because of that, the meat has a similar taste. Right now, because of supply and demand, it is more expensive, but as the meat catches on, the price should drop.
Like right now, you're going to be paying about 2 to 3 times the price for buffalo that you would for good beef. The reason being is just because of the supply. We just don't have the animals to supply the demand. But in the long term, the buffalo is not a high-priced commodity to produce, so it's got the economics to be a meat of the future.
At the present time, raising bison is very profitable. The price for the animals continues to rise, and as the industry learns more about them, processing and marketing the meat becomes more streamlined.
Since I've been in 6 years, basically the price has gone up about $1,000 average every year. The price has gone up on them, so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. It's pretty good return on your money. That's why a lot of people have been looking into it. And down in the States and stuff too, we are seeing just some huge cattle ranches that are starting to switch over to buffalo.
Ranching bison is an investment that's paying off for the nearly 700 bison ranchers in Canada, and it is strictly a business, except for one particular animal.
Well, this one was a heifer I brought in from the States this spring, and actually somebody had bought a calf and just wanted to have a buffalo calf. And she wasn't halter broke enough, but I always wanted to break a buffalo. I was always kind of had a desire. One day I was going to ride a buffalo. But it's just kind of a novelty to have one pet kind of thing that.
The bison industry is still growing, and it will take many years before it is a mainstream meat source. But for promoters like Kevin and Rick and their Wild West Buffalo Company, it's a goal that will be achieved.
Coming up, something's fishy about this farm. We see what they grow.
Welcome back to Impact.
Alberta is known for its endless grain fields and large cattle ranches.
But some people are raising other creatures as a cash crop, and some of them certainly seem out of place on the prairies.
There are a lot of farms in Alberta raising a lot of different products for consumers. Some of the smaller farms are beginning to raise some very different crops. This is one of them. It has the usual things that a farm has. There's a Texas gate as you enter the property, a barn, a Quonset, and a horse trailer. But there are other things that show that something's different about the crop they raise. This is the Chin Coulee Trout Farm, and their crop is fish.
It's extremely interesting, and fish they grow so fast. You never get tired of them. 1 minute they're little, and 2 or 3 months later they're big already. So.
Steve Mackenzie Greaves started his trout farm 10 years ago. He He started with a few ponds and decided to grow fish for grocery stores.
For the first 6 years, we butchered and sold everything to Safeway. So for 4 or 5 months of the year, we butchered twice a week and went to 40 Safeway stores. And that went very well.
Steve did all his own butchering on site. At that time, he was raising 50 to 80,000 pounds, which he discovered was less than half of the demand. Not having the ability to further expand, he decided to change directions.
So what we did is 4 years ago, we quit the butcher market and we sold everything live. So we cut our volume back and then just sell everything live. And that's been, it's been good. It's a little less labor, not quite as intense because we're not pushing to get that bigger fish. So that's been good for us. And then 3 years ago, the government started to buy fish from the private sector.
Taking $1 from every fishing license sold, the government is now using private sector fish to stock some lakes. The other market for live fish is farmers stocking their dugouts.
We haul them all live. We've got different tanks depending on the size of the load. Try and get them to pick them up. And that we've got little portable tanks for that. That works the best actually because then they pick them up when they want them and not when it suits us.
The facility has many ponds, each one holding different size fish or acting as holding ponds for water. The water makes a circuit through the facility, keeping fresh water in the ponds. 1,050 gallons of water a minute are pumped, changing the water twice a day.
We pump out of the irrigation canal. It's running in right there. Comes through this top pond and drops through that small pond first. That's where we start with the small fish. Into the next pond, through those two ponds. Those two larger ponds there are where we do the bulk of our feeding. And then the water then runs into that pond, settles out, and then we pump it back into the canal.
Steve says that raising fish is no different than raising any other livestock. If you keep it unstressed and healthy, it wards off disease and grows well. The biggest difference is that a fish can get sick quicker than other livestock.
If fish don't have everything they need, they die. It's not like a cow where you go and just call the vet, what's wrong with this? By the time you find a fish vet, your fish are dead. So you know, there's some hard knocks to learn too.
At feeding time, the calm water turns into a frothing sea of fish, scrambling to get to the food. It is a marine-based protein, high in fat, made of fish meal and fish oil. It's a very specialized feed made to maximize the growth of the fish.
Our peak days, we fed up to 1,600 or 1,800 pounds.
The fish grow very quickly, growing as much as 2 inches in a month in the summertime. Fish that are just 1 gram in the spring are 10 to 12 inches long by October.
What we raise is a rainbow trout, and these specific ones are, there's 18 or 19 subspecies of rainbows, and this is a cross between the 4 subspecies. And these ones are actually raised for the filleting market, and you can see how they're quite thick across, quite heavy, quite a beautiful fish. They look good on the barbecue.
Aquaculture in Alberta has a long way to go to compete with other centers. Idaho and Washington produce 60 million pounds of fish a year. And British Columbia also produces a lot of fish with a very developed salmon industry.
You know, 1 million pounds of fish consumed in Alberta and 100,000 pounds produced. So it's almost all getting imported, all the table fish. So we should, in Alberta, we should be totally self-sufficient with fish. We have the water. It's just that we have to get there has to be committed people get into it.
And as the producers become knowledgeable about their system and become consistent producers, there is a lot of room for diversification. There is a market for many other species of fish. Many bring more return to the farmer.
We have the capability in southern Alberta to have some world-class fishing if we could just get the program right and get the lake stocked and everything properly. And it's there to do it, but it just costs money.
Steve and his family enjoy the lifestyle of trout farming. It's chemical-free and not labor-intensive. There has to be always someone looking after the farm, making sure that the pumps are working and the fish are fed and happy. But what about the Texas gate at the entrance to the property? We wondered if that kept fish from escaping.
Well, just the big ones. But they'll jump over that Texas gate. When they want to go, they're going to go. The gate ain't going to stop them.
Coming up on Impact, we'll see how one lady's love of animals has turned into a full-time occupation.
Welcome back to Impact.
There are a lot of animal lovers in our area.
But one woman has taken her love of animals to an extreme. She has so many, she's opened up her farm as a petting zoo for kindergarten students.
Located alongside the highway between Lethbridge and Coaldale, there's a sign for silver birch, and you may think that it is a llama farm. That sign should read Heidi's Ark. Heidi Radvansky is a self-proclaimed animal lover. Her collection of animals include donkeys, roosters, pheasants, peacocks, pigs, sheep, calves, goats, both pygmy and fainting, and a Scottish Highland bull named Bruce. In fact, there are so many animals that Heidi has opened her property as a petting zoo.
Well, I have a petting zoo for kindergartens, or for seniors come out, or scout groups, or just so that kids from the city can see some of the different kinds of animals that are around.
And Heidi is booked solid by kindergarten, seniors groups, and others. She has never advertised, but the word has definitely made its way around. The main part of her collection is her llamas and alpacas. She has named almost all of them.
This one is Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and he was born last August, and that's Touched by an Angel. This one is Sparkling Rosé, Mystique Caribou. She's the boss. And that one is Whitney, and that one is Sparkle. The darker one is Jasmine, and her little baby is called Alpaca. And the lighter one is Esprit, and her baby is called Fuzzy Wuzzy Was a Bear.
While the names may seem a little out of the ordinary, in the land of llamas, they're the norm.
When you register them, you can have up to 30 letters on the registration form, including your herd identifier. So that's still within the 30 letters.
Heidi bought her first llamas in 1990 and her alpacas 2 years ago.
We read about it in magazines, the llamas, and we went to a sale, and we just kind of fell in love with them at the sale.
These animals are gentle and friendly in spite of their size.
A llama is about twice as big as an alpaca. A llama can get to be 350, 400 pounds. An alpaca usually is about 120 to 160. The alpacas have the little pointy ears, as llamas have big, long, banana-shaped ears. The alpacas have a more rounded hind end, as a llama has a straight back. The alpacas have more wool coverage. We have to shear them every year. As a llama, we will shear maybe once every 1 or 2 years, but just a barrel cut alpaca, we will shear total body shear.
Llamas and alpacas come from South America. They can be found in Chile, Bolivia, and Peru. Their thick wool lets them winter exceptionally well in Canada, but the summers are harder on them.
I have left the barn open for them, and the next morning I'll come out and they'll be sitting with snow in a row all along their backs. They just don't seem to mind the cold at all.
Llamas live for 20 to 25 years in captivity. They are raised mainly for the wool and as a cart animal, but they are also used as a meat source in South America, and there is a small market for it in Canada.
This is the Specialist, and Robin Hood and Batman's coming at the back, and Bear, he's a little alpaca, and then Tonto is the white one.
Lethbridge will be well known in llama circles this year. It will be the location for a national event this fall.
In October, we're going to have the Canadian Llama and Alpaca Conference at the Lodge.
In every corner of her property there are more animals, and Heidi has a deep attachment to all of them.
They have 44 teeth. They're one of my favorite pets, though. They eat cat food like cats. Very easy to take care of.
Heidi gets help with her menagerie from her family, and she receives small donations from the groups that visit her farm. But Heidi's motivation behind the farm lies deeper.
Well, I just grew up on a farm, and I just like animals.
Well, that's our program for this time.
And if you have a story idea for us, contact us at CISA TV, 1401 28th Street North, Lethbridge, Alberta.
We'll see you again on the next Impact.
Impact is brought to you by Zeneca, Bills Electric, St. Mary River Irrigation District, Eastern Irrigation District, Raylord Trucking, and Cactus Communications.